Happy holidays! It's that time of the year when people are shopping till they drop. And what better way to end the year than to have a conversation with the Chief Marketing Officer of one of Kenya's biggest supermarkets? Today we have a conversation with Betty Wamaitha. This is She Means Business, and I'm your host, Claire Munde. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Claire.
How are you?
Very, very well. Good afternoon.
Welcome to She Means Business.
Thank you.
So today we just want to learn a little bit about you, your career in marketing and all that you're doing. And I think a good place to start, because right now you're the Chief Marketing Officer for Quickmart, but before that you had a journey.
Correct.
So we'd like to know, what are some of the key milestones that brought you to where you are right now at the exco level?
Thanks, Claire. And thank you so much for having me on your show. I think for me, my career started way back, and I'd say as early as immediately I finished my high school. The following Saturday, I was in a supermarket, interestingly, and then it was Tusker mattresses, now Tuskies, and I was a brand ambassador. So what I used to do then was talk to customers. Hi, do you want to buy this product today? It's on discount, it's on offer. And so I did that for quite some time, and not a long time. I got restless, and around that same time is when I got into Strathmore University. And at the time, I remember everyone used to do accounting, and so that's the first thing I did. And I got there and I struggled with accounting, and so my career counselor then advised me to try CIM. And CIM was just a natural fit, and I really thrived in CIM, so the Chartered Institute of Marketing. And so at the same time, I saw an opportunity at Nation Media Group. So they were recruiting for sales executives for the then business directory. And I remember looking at the ad and seeing, oh my gosh, I am so underqualified because it required all these sorts of things. But I said, let me try. What is the worst that can happen? Yeah. And so I got in, and at Nation, I was the youngest employee, I think, for the longest time, because I got in at 19 years. And I worked my way up, and it was really tough, Claire, if I can tell you, because you're selling space this year for a directory that will come out next year. And maybe for the Gen Zs who are watching, a directory is your Google today. We never had Google back then, and so you'd have to buy a book that had all the business contacts, and so businesses would advertise within the directory. So I did that, and it was, interestingly, I really thrived, and I was able to hit my targets. And an opportunity opened up in Uganda, where then I was a country liaison between Kenya and Ugandan advertisers. So I set up base in a daily monitor. I can say that was the best time I had in my career because I was abroad. I used to tell people I'm working abroad, I'm an expatriate. And we then do a lot of work, making sure that the advertisers there were getting advertising space then in the Daily Nation or the East African or whichever other publications we had here in Kenya. So I was in Uganda and then came back to Kenya. We were setting up the digital division. Then it was a very futuristic concept, because then we were looking at the New York Times, and they were the ones setting the pace in terms of the digital transformation for media houses. And so we had to really put on our future fit mindset. And so we set up the likes of nation.co.ke, BD Africa. We had a very young, exciting team, very, very interesting ideas that used to come up. And I'm so happy to say that as we look at media today, those are the mainstay publications, and those are the ones that are keeping these media houses running, because then the digital transformation has come. It's here today. So it was exciting. So I left Nation after about 7 years. And then I was like, okay, it's time for something interesting. So I got into the consulting space. And one of my first clients was then Interconsumer Products. And he had just sold to L'Oreal. So we went around the country setting up distributorships, and and the route to market channel for him. And so I got to visit all sorts of interesting places in the country. I got to go as far as Moyale, Isiolo, those places that, and you're there recruiting, getting product into the market. It was a very exciting time in my career. And while I was at it, I remember I'd come from, I think, Busia, and I was driving back to Nairobi, and I stopped in Ruaka. And then there was a very small QuickMat there. And remember, I usually say I had the samosa that changed my life because it was so delicious and so clean. And I remember just feeling such a sense of professionalism with the team that was attending to me in that store. And I said to myself, I have to meet the owner of this company because I think it has such potential. Because imagine, just a small outlet, but the experience for me was life-changing. And as it happens, I got to meet him, we spoke, and I had such a vision for what the brand could be, and he was sold. My role entailed negotiating joint business plans with suppliers, bringing in additional revenue that we didn't have before. So yeah, typically my day would start at 5 in the morning and very late into the night, because then we had to really think through the strategy. How do we grow this business? How do we ensure we're getting in additional, as opposed to relying on the everyday trading revenue? What is this other income that we can tap into? So typically, Claire, my day would start at 5 in the morning and very late, because then you're meeting all suppliers. At the time, I think we had about 600 suppliers. And for each, you have to sit and look at what is the best opportunity here, and how do we grow this supplier, and at the same time, what are the benefits that can accrue for us as a retailer? And so we were able to grow the business very quickly, because now we did not entirely rely on trading income. And so I'm happy to say that when I joined QuickMat, then we had 3 stores, 2 in Nakuru, in Nairobi, and now we are Kenya's second largest retailer, 64 stores, employing over 7,500 Kenyans in our stores. And I think for me, it's such a testament of what's possible if you just lock in and focus. And so I can say then it was a natural transition, because us being the original team that helped build this business. So when the private equity fund came on board, of course, the opportunity then presented itself to be at the exco level. And so I started off as the head of marketing for QuickMat, and now I'm the chief marketing officer, at least at the C-suite level at QuickMat. So yeah, so 10 years in, I've just celebrated my 10th anniversary at QuickMat. And so yeah, so that's a journey.
Congratulations. And you talked about that store in Ruaka, and now you have 64 stores. When we talk about the retail sector, it's very hyper-local. So as the Chief Marketing Officer, I'd like to know about the strategy. How do you maintain a national strategy and still remain relevant at the local level, so that each branch and the consumers there feel you?
That's a real question, Claire, because every store is unique. I'll tell you, the store in Pipeline is significantly different from our store in Westlands, from the customers we serve to the assortment that we have. So the first thing we normally do is a very clear and detailed market study. So when we're opening a store, we first look at what demographics will we be serving in that area? Who are they? What are their needs? Who are our competitors? What are they stocking? What are the gaps? So it starts from that point. And so by the time you're coming into the store, from the products in the assortment to the layout, so it still has to have a national appeal in terms of the branding. The look and feel is standardized, but the assortment, even the pricing. So depending on, we then have to look at what is the best fit for the shopper we are serving. So always, every time we are thinking through strategy and thinking through a new outlet, it's always customer first. What is this customer looking for, and how do we serve them? So yes, I agree. As we get very hyper local, the opportunity is also to maintain the values and the corporate governance at the corporate level, But then now at the store level is also giving the manager autonomy to make everyday decisions. He can then decide how much to order of what different from the other product. So those are some of the initiatives we employ.
Okay, and you know, as you said, each clientele is different. So I want us to double down a little bit on that, because sometimes, I won't name which supermarkets, you'll go to one store and let's say you like certain cookies from the fresh bakery and whatnot, but you like them from a certain store. So even as you're thinking of the clientele of different areas, how do you make sure that the products are standardized? Because sometimes you'll go and get maybe a rock band here and it's very different from the bakery on the other side. So how do you leave that autonomy to the store managers, but at the same time keep some level of uniformity?
Yes, I agree. So like you've said, and the bakery or the deli is a perfect example. So we have standard recipes that are followed across the stores, and even to the point of ensuring that we have ready to use premixes. So for example, the rock band, perfect example. So we have a premix for cakes, breads, so that when you buy a loaf of bread from any of our outlets, you have the same taste, texture, feel, and it doesn't matter which store it is. So like we're saying, there has to be the standardization of the experience, as much as we then try and tweak it and fit it to the shopper in that store. But from the basics point of view, the idea is to ensure that you have the same feel regardless of the QuickMart store you get into. So from how our staff attend to you, to the ambience, like even as simple things as a QuickMat radio, like the jingles you listen to are the same across the country, yeah? And so we would want you to feel, if you're in Mombasa or in Kisumu, in Nanyuki or Nairobi, that you're in a QuickMat store, that it doesn't feel entirely foreign just because you're in this region of the country. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about crisis management. You know, you've been in the C-suite, and the retail is one of those sectors where crisis management is one thing that you keep on going through every other day or week. So, you know, supermarkets, people have different opinions, people have different experiences. What would you say has been the biggest lesson for you when it comes to crisis management, especially in the area of digital? You know, people will go and really talk about it online. How do you manage crisis? And what has been the biggest lesson for you of what to do and what not to do during a time of crisis? I can see you just rolling your eyes.
I'll tell you, I think, yeah, for me, that is exactly what keeps me up at night. When you imagine we are serving more than 4.5 million customers every month, walking through our stores, having different experiences, and of course their expectations. So it starts from that point that first you have to be deliberate about the customer journey in store. But as it happens, we do not exist in a perfect world, and things will happen. Things will fall through the cracks, and here you are facing a gigantic crisis. So one of the things that we have had to do is ensure we have a very clear response plan, crisis response plan. What do we do within the first hour, within the next 2 hours, what, depending on the magnitude of the situation. And we've dealt with situations that have had national conversations brought up because of them. We've had situations at store level. So depending on the scale of the crisis, then there are different mechanisms that we employ. But what I've learned is you have to be really, really having your ear to the ground, because there's things happening in the store every day, and you also have to be accessible. For example, for me, the store can call me anytime, depending on what is going on, because there are issues that they would say this one, then we have to quickly escalate it to Wamaitha, not through the different channels, and it's keeping that pipeline open that the branch manager knows, depending on the situation, she will pick up. I think for me, being accessible is one of the things that has made a difference, because there are issues that you will deal with at the store that do not have to escalate to social media and to all these platforms. So making yourself present, even in the stores. I visit the stores in a week 4 of my days I'm in the branches. Why? Because that's where it's happening. That's where retail is. It's not in our lofty offices up here. So it's important, one, to be accessible, to have a very clear crisis management plan. I always have a team on standby that they know we need to do a press release. You have to reach out to the customer or to the aggrieved party, for example. We also have to look through the legal implications of whatever the situation is. So there's a legal team as well to address the legal implications of the problem. And I'd also say I have such a supportive management team and even our board that where we need intervention, we're able to, again, access them quickly and get that resolved within 24 hours. So my biggest learning is you cannot be an ostrich. You cannot hide from a crisis. You cannot wish it away and just hope it's going to resolve itself somehow. It does not. In fact, it just gets bigger. But you also have to be very careful about what you say, so that you're not also fanning the flames of this problem. And you have to be also empathetic and not be tone deaf. Understand what is the meaning behind the meaning of what we're dealing with. What is it that we need to address from a systems point of view? Is it a training gap? So that I'm not just giving out PR statements. I'm not just saying, we're going to handle. But what at the back end, what are those things that we're resolving so that this crisis is avoided into the future? So I think the learning, and I'd say this for all brands, is we cannot afford to run away or to hide from situations. You have to face it, but also have the right tools to address the problem. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a specific crisis that you can mention for? Give us a bit of specifics of this was a big crisis and we actually overcame that. I want our listeners and our viewers to have some context, because as you said, there have been some that have sparked national debate and so on and so forth. But give us specifics, just one.
Claire, is there just one, really? Is there just one? Which one? Let me think through. We've had quite a number. I'd say, for example, when we were looking at the Gen Z protests that were happening across the country, and I guess this was a challenge to every business, and it's looking at it and saying, how do we continue to operate and give the services that are needed, while also recognizing that there's a conversation happening in the country, and how do we as a brand and a business navigate this space? So I can say that one was quite challenging, because today my shopper is a person that is there on the street, and how do I then make sure that whatever services that are required during that time we avail? I'd also say COVID was another big crisis for businesses, and especially for us in retail, because then we are essential services at that time, and looking at it and ensuring that at the time people are at home, the whole world is in panic mode. People are coming to grab toilet paper from the shelves in record numbers. I remember we'd have I've never understood till this day. We have conversations with retailers across the markets just to understand what is this fascination with toilet paper. So you can imagine one of the things we had to ensure is our suppliers down the line are producing toilet paper, because the customer really is not asking you for milk. They just want toilet paper. And so it's keeping your doors open and responding to the needs of the shopper. So I'd say COVID was, for us, one of those moments that really defined us as a business, because then you have to have PPEs, the masks, sanitizer available in the stores. Your staff as well, you have to continuously communicate and reassure them and make sure that they're also safe, they're vaccinated, and they're able to offer this service within a very safe environment. Customers would come and they'd want to shop at night. So again, the 24-hour stores became critical at this time. So it's really thinking through what is the situation we have, what is the scale, and I guess none of us could really have predicted the impact COVID would have had on ourselves, individual lives, and even the businesses, and then doing your best to offer the much needed services at at that time. There's that mother who has a small baby and COVID is happening. They need diapers, they need formula. How do you ensure that that gets to them and you don't close your doors?
Yeah, I think those are two good examples, COVID and the protests, because for branding, I remember during that period, not just for business brands, personal brands, I remember there was somebody who had gone on Instagram and posted about their birthday, and they were like, wow, this is what you're thinking about at this time. So you can't afford to be tone deaf. Now, you talked about the Gen Z protests. Let's talk about Gen Z. A lot of people in your stores are Gen Zs and some are millennials. As a leader, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that come with working with these people in these generations?
I think what's unique for us today in the workforce is we have about 5 generations within the workforce at the same time. Yeah. So today, even when you look at the interns, the Gen Alphas are coming into the workforce. We have the Gen Zs, we have ourselves, the millennials, and the Gen Xs still in the workforce. So it's trying to think through, how do you adopt your policies? How do you create a culture that then can accommodate these generations, that represent themselves? But like you're saying, I think there's such a huge opportunity when it comes to working with the Gen Zs. Today you walk into our store, the average age is 23, 24 years old. But the idea that the opportunity that I'm seeing is how vibrant they are. New ideas are coming up every day, how outspoken they are. So that ensures that you're constantly thinking through innovation idea. How do I support this very young person who is thinking through their career? They're thinking through what they want for their tomorrow, and how do you create an environment that is accommodating to them? So like you said, it's really different now. We've had to think through the shifts, for example. You find that the younger guys want to work at night compared to before, where they'd work at night, so you're 24-hour stores. So it's balancing all of these unique characteristics that come with the different generations and sort of like meeting those needs. So for example, the millennials are thinking about stability, family. They're thinking through, I think, more a very different, their motivations are very different. So it's also creating a framework within which that they can thrive.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit more about your personal journey. You're at the C-suite level. You're a Chief Marketing Officer. I've had a lot of conversations on She Means Business, and sometimes they say, especially for marketing, not so much CFOs and so on, after reaching that level, there is sometimes some stagnation. Some people are comfortable with it, but then some people are looking at moving from CMO to CEO. So tell us, what are your plans and what does that trajectory look like? Why is it that they sometimes say that the CMO role is just usually a woman's role, just like the HR role? And how do you now move to that next CEO role? What are some of the lessons you've learned from moving from where you are to where you are today and now moving to where you want to go next?
I agree. I've had that conversation, and I think one of the things my coach tells me every day is, you cannot afford to relax. Do not settle at CMO. There's so much else to do. And I agree that it sort of like says marketing lends itself more to women, maybe because of our natural disposition to eat. I'm not sure. But I can say what I've learned is you have to stay hungry and you have to stay agile. One of the programs I recently did was the Senior Management Leadership Program at Strathmore. And what that does, it helps you become an all-round leader as opposed to specializing on one area of focus. In my case, marketing. I'm now able to look at the business in a more all-rounded manner. So we had opportunities to be at Nanyang University in Singapore, and we're able to see, how do you do business in Asia, for example? How do you buy? So that from all the angles, from finance to marketing to procurement to legal so you're able to as opposed to having a conversation that's primarily marketing centric, now I'm able to look at the business in a 360 view. I think the other thing that I've had opportunity to also benefit from is mentorship. So in 2023, I did the US program for Lady Fortune 500 Women Mentorship Program, and that allowed us to sit with Fortune 500 women who are driving businesses like Coca-Cola Global. So the VP marketing, you sit with her and understand what is the journey that got you to where you are today. The CEO of which is this organization? I'll remember. Got to visit Walmart at their head offices and see how they're running business. And these are women who have broken the ceiling in a sense. And so I say that we should not be limited by our title and our role. Today I am Chief Marketing Officer for QuickMat, but I can tell you a lot of things around the operations of the store, around our stock keeping, around how we are paying our suppliers, because it's important for you as a leader to not really don't put blinders and just focus on one area. I think that for me would be very limiting. It's important for you to have a sense of, maybe not at a specialty level, a specialist level, but have a sense of what's going on, have a pulse on everything that's going on in the business. Understand there's a supplier there who has been at your receiving bay for the last 1 hour. Why? Yeah, has nothing to do with marketing, but it has an impact on the overall customer experience, because if that product is not received in time, then my customer down the line will not have it on the shelf. Have conversations with your staff. What are their pain points? Because if my staff is not happy, then they will not serve my customer joyfully. So you have to think about it from everything is interconnected in corporate, every single element. If my supplier is not paid, then they will not supply. Then my customer is not happy. So it's looking at I think we really have to open our minds and think about the business in a very interconnected manner, and the interdependencies that lie there within, and what solutions are you providing to the business.
Just don't be an ostrich, be an all-rounder, right?
Be an all-rounder. understand a bit of everything.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about work-life integration. Why are you looking at me like that? You talked about you started when they had 3 stores, now there are 64. You had long days, 5 a.m. up to late in the night, and that takes a toll on your personal life. So tell me what your journey has been like, balancing or integrating your professional life as well as your personal life. What have been the trade-offs? Have they been worth it?
I think the one thing I'll say, and I'll say this with authority, is that work-life balance does not exist. It's a myth. And I think for us as women, we have just to appreciate that at different times in your career, different opportunities arise, and you have to place your focus there. I'll give you an example. I think for starting on in my career, I would have afforded to be at the office all hours, because there are no children, there's nothing. But now as you progress, then now your priorities tend to shift, and you start thinking around their school plays you have to attend, their recitals, there's all of this going on, there's soccer. For me, I'm a soccer mom. And still, you have board meetings, you have departmental exco meetings, and all these other responsibilities that are looking to you. So I'd say, as earlier on in my children's lives, I've had to really look at, is it that I'm going to work later into the night to ensure that that project is done, so that at 2 in the afternoon, I'm at my son's soccer practice. And because that matters to me. Yeah, and to him as well. So it's looking at what are those important things that I want to have a relationship with my children when all of this is said and done. I do not want to go home to strangers who have not been part of their lives. And so it's really, and I think it's very personal. What do you value? And then that is where you put your energy, at the same time ensuring that you keep your career going, because bills have to be paid. I cannot be a soccer mom who's not employed. So it's really it's really looking at those moments and what matters to you. So for example, my son's soccer practice, I have to be there. So it's then, if I need to work until 2 a.m. to ensure that is done, then I'm there for him. Those are the trade-offs. Sometimes, I guess, like now for us, we are at our busiest season in retail, and I would miss out on a lot of cookouts and barbecues and Christmas parties, because then I have to be in the store. This is when we are selling. So it's being clear about what you want and the trade-offs that will ensure that happens, and not holding to it too personally. Yeah. And even when you miss a soccer practice, it's fine. There'll be another one tomorrow. It's not the end of the world. So it's just, it's never that serious end of the day, but it is also very serious where it matters, where it comes to family, where it comes to your relationships, yeah, and what energy do you bring home. For example, I've had a board meeting and I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I need to have a few minutes. Will I go through the gym, first get myself out of that funk, so that when I go home, I bring my best self to my family. And maybe I'm having a challenge at home. Again, what is that buffer between home and the office, so that by the time I'm coming to deal with my guys, I'm also bringing my best self to the office. So those are some of the things I've learned. And also, how do you, well-being, what are those things that I do for my well-being? So I walk a lot at Karura, I go to the gym. How do I get my mental space right, so that you're able to deal with all these competing responsibilities? How do I still spend time with my girlfriends and we laugh and I come back to myself, so that, again, when you're meeting me in the office or at home, I'm at my best self? So it's those things. And also your health. How do we take care of our health as women? How do I ensure that I'm at my best physically, so that then I can meet all these responsibilities? So it's a bit of everything. But then again, the idea is, how do you show up as your best self, whatever the situation, at home or at work.
Okay, now we're just about to get to the quickfire section, but before that, I'd like to know your thoughts on this issue of femininity in leadership, because we've had a number of She Means Business interviews where they talk about some women have said, sometimes when you're at the C-suite level, there's that pressure to try and perform like a man, and then others say, what, you're not a man, so you're just a woman and you have unique things that you bring to the table, so don't leave your femininity aside. And before this interview, we were talking about that article I read of yours, and there's that thing of you're in pink and everything, and some people like they're in black because you want to look like the man. So what are your thoughts about that? Should a woman show up as that? Yes, I'm a woman, I'm feminine and all that, and this is what I bring to the table. Or should they try and be, masculine and try and fit in because that is what is expected? Yeah.
Oh, no. I think we have such beautiful and unique qualities as women. And there's a way I'll see a situation a man won't. There's a way I will hear conversation that a man wouldn't, and that's why there's space for women in corporate. And so I usually say you have to bring your most authentic self to a conversation, and you lean on your strengths. And for me, if I try to be a man or like a man, it's not my natural disposition, so it'll be awkward and difficult, and I'll be constantly in my head trying to think, what would a man do in this situation? Whereas just as I am is enough. And I'd say as women, we really have to be confident in the gifts and the talents that we have naturally. Of course, there are the skills and the learnings we take from school, but I'd say there's such a grace to you as a woman, and so I'm always of the school of thought that I bring my femininity to the conversation. Of course, I'll not be crying rivers and any of that, but I think there's such a strength to who we are as women, to what shifts we can make in the business. We have an empathy, we have a softness in our approach to a lot of things. So I think it's important for us to recognize our natural strengths and to lean on those, as opposed to trying to be masculine. So you'll never catch me in black. Never.
Okay, so let's go to our quickfire section. And I usually ask my guests what book they're reading, but I'm looking at your shelves there, and I can see the 48 laws of power.
Yes.
What is the one law that you live by from Robert Greene's book?
Ha ha ha. The one law.
Just
is
one.
Know what everyone is bringing to that conversation. So know your fools from your, you get,
Yes.
and who not to displease and who to work with. And I think that for me has stood out, because everyone in whichever space you're dealing with comes in with different sets. So learning how to maneuver is very important.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that book. I'm reading it now for the third time.
You know, there are people who are like, oh my goodness, that's such a manipulative book. But then he argues, I mean, this is just the reality. So you need to understand the laws and how to play them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they'll be played against you.
Yeah, exactly. So what does success look like for Betty?
Success for me is having a happy home to go home to at the end of the day, and a fulfilling career. So it's not either or for me. If I can be happy while doing what I'm doing and having an impact on communities and the people I deal with every day, but most primarily a positive impact at home with my children, with my family, that for me is success. I take that any day. Yeah.
Okay. What do you do for fun?
You want us to go there?
Yes, the ones we can. Yeah.
Oh, I enjoy dancing. I enjoy dancing. I enjoy hosting. I'm always having people at my house every other weekend. So I enjoy cooking. It's one of the things for me that is completely therapeutic. So I'll invite you over. I think I do a very mean stew, and a steak. So I enjoy cooking a lot. I enjoy dwelling myself up. I think there are days I'll just sit in front of the mirror and just see how different looks look on me. Enjoy shopping a lot. And traveling. I think this year I've had the opportunity to be to about 8 countries so far. So it's those are the things I do for fun. And my friends, Karura, I enjoy Karura. I think I really, every time I'm at Karura, I really thank Wangari Maathai for the gift she gave to us, and as a woman, being so strong and ensuring we have such a beautiful place in the middle of Nairobi to enjoy. So I think, those are the ones I can tell you.
The rest we'll discuss later. Okay, as we wrap up, I'd like you to look into the camera and speak to that woman who is just trying to rise, whether she's in marketing, whether she's in corporate, or whichever career she's handling. Mm-hmm. What is that one bit of advice that you'll give to her on how to scale up that ladder and one day be in the C-suite?
I'd say to every woman out there, our dreams are valid, and I don't only say that from just saying. I think it's important for you to be very clear and very deliberate about your career and about the path of your life. And so as we go into 2026, what are your goals? What are the 5 things you need to achieve, and how do you achieve them? So what's the process you're going to put in place? So I think it's very important for us to be intentional about our lives and about the direction we want our lives to take, and bring on board the right people who ensure that these dreams come true. And so from dreams to goals to reality. So we can't just sit by and wait for life to happen by itself. I think it's important for us to really go out there and be the change we want to see, in a sense, and make these transformational changes in our lives. So as we think through 2026, let it not be just another calendar year. Let it not be 2025 on repeat. But what are those fundamental changes? And let's just focus on 5. It doesn't have to be 10, 20. What are those 5 things you want to do around your health, for example, around your career, around your relationships? And what then do you do to ensure this happens? If it's vision boarding that you'll require to do, journaling so that you're held accountable, is getting a mentor or getting a coach who will guide you through this process. I think we have to be intentional about how we live our lives. We're only here for such a short time. We have to come out of this having achieved all the goals and dreams that God has put in us.
Awesome. You've heard it from Betty Wamaitha, from dreams to goals to reality. You have homework as you get into 2026. List 5 things that you want to achieve and make them a reality. This has been She Means Business. Until next year, have a good one. I have been your host, Claire Munde.